Hello everyone, my name is Yara and welcome to my Demigod-a-thon Week 3 video. So Week 3 Demigod-a-thon, we were reading The Titan's Curse, which is the third book in the series, and as I was reading it, I was just realizing how well suited this book and this series is to a screen adaptation. This book kind of marks a turning point in the series because everything starts to get a lot darker. We see the first on-screen deaths from meaningful characters. Percy kind of has to start dealing with the consequences and the impending doom that is the Titan War. And the fact that this book takes place in winter kind of accentuates that darkness. So as I was reading it, I was just imagining all these scenes as if they were going to play out on screen. And so that got me thinking about the potential for a Percy Jackson adaptation. So if you didn't know, Rick Riordan is currently in talks with Disney to try to make a Percy Jackson adaptation for Disney+, and it's very early on in the negotiations, but I just wanted to talk about my thoughts on it, the potential of it all, and what I want to see from an adaptation if we get it. So like I said, a lot of what happens in the books could actually translate very well to the screen. Rick Riordan has a way of writing action scenes that makes it very easy to follow and very impactful and exciting. So I think those will be easily translatable to a screen. The one reservation I would have is the fact that Percy has an inner monologue throughout this whole series, and we wouldn't really be able to see that in a TV show. Like, I guess we could, but I don't really think I want an entire, voiceover the whole time. Maybe, in the first episode and the last episodes, we could have that voiceover as a kind of wrapping up of the story. But I mean, books have been adapted before from this way, so I'm sure it's possible. And just regarding the idea of is this adaptation likely to happen, obviously I don't really know, but I actually think there's a good chance that if this does go through that it'll be a good adaptation. I don't think Rick Riordan would be fighting this hard to just let what happened to the Percy Jackson movies happen again. I think he would make sure that he'd be able to have input, or at least put trust in people that he knows would stay faithful to the books. And Rick Riordan also has a lot of leverage to use regarding the adaptations because obviously the movies didn't do very well in the box office, nor did they do well with the fans of the books, and that's very apparent given all the reactions from social media that people can see and document now. And also, I think it was this past year, Rick Riordan released the emails that he exchanged with the producers at Fox when they were making the Percy Jackson movies, and how Rick Riordan gave them notes and told them what was wrong with their current script, and they just ignored that, and that backfired. And the fans had such a big reaction to that, knowing that Rick Riordan tried to fix what was the movies and they just didn't listen. So he has a lot of leverage against Disney if they agree to this adaptation. There are many things that I hardcore need from the adaptation. I'm pretty lenient. I understand that the TV medium is very different from a book medium and that there may need to be some changes to make sure the story is told in the right way in that medium. And I actually appreciate when directors and writers acknowledge that and morph the story in a way that stays true to the source material but makes it palatable in that new form. One thing I really don't want them to change though is the age of the characters, just because it is such an integral part of the story that Percy gets to grow up and mature along the way. And I really don't understand why they didn't do this in the original movies, because it was already shown that Harry Potter was a success using that formula, so I don't know why they wouldn't repeat that. I also really just want them to get Percy's character right. I mean, really, I want them to get all the characters right. I would prefer if we could have exact lines from the book, that'd be great, but I just really want that persona to come through. I also don't want them to change anything about Percabeth. I think the way Percabeth starts and ends is perfect, the epitome of slow burn romance. So I don't want them to touch that, just leave it the way it is in the book. That's a bit of an exaggeration. I don't mind if they tweak it a little bit, but I want them to make it a long journey and not just right away. Something that I want, which I don't think will happen, but I want so badly, is for the TV show to be animated. And I know there's a lot of differing opinions about this. I think it's pretty split half and half between people who want it live action or animated. I know Julia, who's another host of Demigod-a-thon, agrees with me that it should be animated. It just would work so well animated. Because if I compare Percy Jackson to current animated shows, or relatively current animated shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Troll Hunters, which honestly has the exact same vibe as Percy Jackson, or even How to Train Your Dragon, that has a very similar Percabeth vibe. All these things that have similar vibes to Percy Jackson are animated, so in my mind it just translates so well to being an animation. I also think they could go through a lot less hurdles if they go to the animation route, because they don't have to worry about the weird CGI of the monsters. Because if we're being honest, Greek mythology creatures are weird. They're wacky. They're weird combinations of different animals, and I think if they try to make them realistic in a way that CGI tries to do with live action movies, I just think it's gonna either enter the uncanny valley or just be kind of odd if they don't get the design right. That was one of my problems with Sea of Monsters, is I didn't like the way that they designed the Cyclopses and the monsters and stuff. That probably isn't an inherent problem of having live action and then CGI with it. It could have just been like the designers didn't make a really good design for the Cyclopses. But I just think that overall, it would be a lot easier if everything was just animated. I don't know much about how much TV shows cost, but I also think that making it animated would be a lot cheaper. And also you don't have to worry about the actors growing up because it's just their voices. I would definitely still be excited about this series if it was live action, and I feel like if it does end up getting the green light, it will go live action. But I love animation and I want more of it. Oh, I should also talk about the fact that it's going to be a TV show and not a movie, or it might be a TV show. As opposed to many books, the Percy Jackson books actually would translate pretty well in a movie format, because I think they're short enough and concise enough that putting them in a movie wouldn't take out that many details that would end up ruining the story. But ultimately, I think a TV show is a better route when it comes to adaptation, just in general. There's just so much more time to explore everything, to get to know the characters. And I think because it's being negotiated with Disney Plus, I believe, that we wouldn't be adhering to, say, like the normal TV standard, which is like 22 episodes, because then I think sometimes the stories are stretched out for too long. I think they can just figure out what the length needs to be and make that many episodes. If it were live action, I don't really have any person that I would cast as anything. Because the cast have to be so young, it's probably going to be unknown actors, and I'd rather prefer them to be unknown actors. And I just don't really put celebrities to faces when I read books, so I'm no help in that regard. Alright, so that's pretty much all I have to say about a potential adaptation. I am kind of scared of getting my hopes up, because in the event that it doesn't get greenlit, I'll be kind of disappointed. But there's a part of me that thinks it'll happen, and I hope it does, because the fandom deserves this. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!